This is the Wally and Methot Show, powered by Barrhaven Ford. Now here are your hosts, Brent Wallace and Mark Methot.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Brent Wallace. He's former NHL defenseman Mark Methot, who will for now ever claim that he chose the Montreal Canadiens at the beginning of the playoffs to be in the Stanley Cup Final.
I honestly can't even remember what my predictions were that far back because I know I flip-flop a lot. I'm very fair weather, but we'll get into that today, Wally.
Yeah, it was the Leafs. I'll assure you of that. All right, this is episode 31 of the Wally and Methot Show, powered by Barrhaven Ford. Head in today to check out their Roush-inspired BFC custom vehicles, F-150s, Rangers, Mustangs, vehicles built the way you want. Stop in today, checking them out. The BFC custom builds at 555 Dealership Drive in Barrhaven, or go to barrhaven.com/BFC-customs. All right, it is our Stanley Cup edition of the Wally Methot Show, Meth. So I'm pumped as we are for today's guest. It is a guy who's going to be calling his first Stanley Cup Final after 30 years or 40 years of being in broadcasting. He'll be doing every call for Sportsnet. The legendary Chris Cuthbert is here in the chat, brought to you by Whitewater Brewing, who recently launched the Whitewater Distillery, and they make an artisanal gin. It's called Paper Boat Gin. I had a bunch on the weekend. The bottle is getting less and less behind me. Find it at your local LCBO and in the Ottawa and Ottawa Valley. And a slice of lime and some soda, and you're good to go. All right. We head back to Russia later in the show and bring on Egor Sokolov from Russia with Sokolov, presented by Faces Magazine. And, of course, Trivial Trivia presented by Gong Show, all that, and some great prop bets in Sports Interaction segment later. All right, first, for the headlines, as always, built by BonnechereExcavatingInc.com. They are a call away from all your aggregate needs. Bonnechere Excavating, helping to build the Ottawa Valley. All right, here we go. Drop the puck. What to expect in Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final tonight. Looking for an edge. Do the Habs have any edge against the Tampa Bay Lightning? What's the difference? Who will make a difference in the final? At what price? Now, this is funny. This is a Twitter poll yesterday that blew up. Who's better, Carey Price or Henrik Lundqvist? And don't touch me. Pops Suzuki wouldn't let his kids touch the cup when they went to the Hall of Fame as kids. All right, Beth, let's go. What do you expect to see here in Game 1?
That's a tough call because I've been mulling this over my head now for the past few days, trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to see out of these two teams? Well, you've got two teams that haven't played each other. They're completely unfamiliar, at least over the past year, of course, stating the obvious. But for me, if you're Tampa, I think Montreal's really, you've prepared for this series already by playing against the Islanders and by getting a feel for that sort of choke down defense throughout the neutral zone and D zone around net front, of course, that the Islanders bring under Barry Trotz. So I think they're prepared for this, but I just, at this point, we've been making all these predictions over the past few rounds. And for me, it's pretty simple. I really do believe Montreal is a great opportunity here, and we'll get into that a little later. But as far as Game 1 goes, home ice advantage is a big one, right? If you've got home ice, you can get your matchups. Obviously, there's some injury issues going on with both sides, one being COVID in Montreal. I don't know how big of a factor that is. We'll find out with Armia. And then, of course, a huge one in Tampa with Kucherov. We know that he's probably going to played in Game 7 against the Islanders. But, I mean, at this point, that's your top scorer, the NHL's top scorer right now in the postseason. And if you're missing a weapon like that, it will definitely have some trickle-down effects throughout the lineup. So for me in that first game, they're going to feel each other out. They're going to you're probably going to see a little bit of physical play, a lot of energy. Once that gets out of the system, I think the players are going to kind of sink into themselves, their experience-wise and comfort level-wise, and they're going to get a better idea of where they're at after that first period.
You brought up Tampa at home. My goodness, they play a completely different game, it seems, when they get to be in their own building. But part of I'm curious about Game 1 is it sloppier in Game 1 because of the fact that these two teams haven't played each other, so they're trying to figure out matchups and systems and I guess the style that each person plays? It's
hard to say because from my experiences playing in the postseason and getting onto those later rounds, you're so hyper-focused in the moment. You're as dialed in as you've ever been in your hockey career. Obviously, Tampa has experience in that domain, in that regard. They've been there. They know how to do it. And quite frankly, they've been there very recently, as we all know. So they've got an advantage there, I think, and that they can play any way you like. So for me, yeah, it might be a little sloppy at the beginning. There's going to be some nerves that'll be playing a little bit of a role. But like I said earlier, I think after that first 10 minutes, when things start to settle a little bit, you're going to see teams on both sides start to come into their own. And again, I can't stress this enough. I'm sure we'll talk about it a little later on, but that injury thing that I was talking about with Kucherov, that's a huge, huge factor for tonight in this series. And quite frankly, we won't know until we see him on the ice, because as of right now, I have no idea where he's at physically. Only he knows that. They were playing a little bit of mind games. He had a funny quote the other day or yesterday when he was asked about it, and he was denying the fact that he was injured, although he only played 46 seconds in that game. So it's interesting. You're seeing a bit of that showmanship and gamesmanship happening right now. And I think we're going to have to wait and see until the game begins.
Is there concern with Yoel Armia out of the Montreal lineup? Like, is this a bigger void than people in a regular season game would probably pay any attention to?
Yeah, and I think you and I would both agree on this one, Wally, that it is a big factor, because that fourth line has been tremendous for the Montreal Canadiens, right? So I think losing a guy like him, he's a big body, he's physical, he creates a lot of space out there, and he's just quite frankly a role player. And with him and the way him and Perry and Stahl have been throughout the postseason, typically you wouldn't be dwelling on a loss like that too much, although every part of your team is important, of course. But a fourth line player, normally speaking, you wouldn't really worry too much. But right now, that's your secondary scoring, and they've been huge for this team. So that's a big loss, potentially, if he's not playing. And I don't know what the protocol is. Wally, you might know more than I do. If he's even
he's not on the plane.
So it's confirmed he's not playing.
He's not on the trip.
Oh, he's not even on the trip. Well, then, yeah, it's a huge loss. So I was trying to dig up some stuff, and I couldn't find anything on him. But other than I know it's a huge loss for that team, and they're going to have to find a way to replace
it. Looking for an edge. Do the Habs have any? I'm trying to goaltending, forwards, defense, coaching.
Yeah.
I can't find any chink in these whole Tampa armor. So is there some secret that the Montreal Canadiens have?
Well, do they have an edge? I don't know. Maybe. Do they have a chance? Yes, they have a chance. I mean, we had them written off against Toronto. I thought that Toronto was a well-rounded hockey club, right? And so, for me, it's simple. They go through some really good teams. We were writing them off every series for the most part. And I think now we're all starting to realize, okay, they're for real. We have to take them serious. And for the keys to Montreal is very obvious. It's their goaltending and Carey Price. It's their top four on defense, and of course, secondary scoring up front. So if those big four guys are relatively healthy, and I'm talking Sherratt, Weber, Petrie, and Edmondson, if they're healthy, we obviously know there's probably some bumps and bruises. We know Weber has a sore hand. We know Petrie has a bad hand or wrist or whatever it is as well. So if they can continue their play, create a lot of space for Carey Price, they're going to give themselves a chance, quite frankly. And I think and they've demonstrated, this club has demonstrated that they can stay relatively disciplined. We saw the Islanders do that, and they made it to 7 games with Tampa. I think that if you can do that against Tampa right now, you're going to give yourself an opportunity. Of course, Tampa's the favorite. We all know they're the favorite. But I'll be honest right now, I've been thinking back and forth, Wally, really hard. And I'm a flip-flopper when it comes to making picks.
You're like a dead fish out of water.
I like to be able to change my picks based off how the teams have been doing progressively over the playoffs, right? I don't want to stick to my guns. I had Tampa making it all the way. That was an easy one. But right now, I really do have a hard time picking a favorite, only because I just love the way Montreal's been playing. And more importantly, I just have a hard time cheering against that team right now. So we'll get into that later when we get into the sports interaction stuff. But I think for right now, I think it's pretty even. I really do. And I hate saying that. I don't want to be on the fence, but I love the way the makeups of both these teams are, and they both match up very well against each other.
Okay, I'm going to point out something that nobody's brought up, so I know it's got to be top secret, and that is that Tampa's building has the Tesla coils in the corners that create the lightning when you come out.
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
I think that that's the secret, that they somehow mess with the visiting team who comes into the building. Well, if you haven't seen these Tesla coils, they are phenomenal. They're either $30,000 or $60,000 each, and they create lightning that hang down in a copper wire.
Really cool. No, you're right. And not only that, but the building's beautiful. They got the massive screen when you come in. Yeah. It's very loud. That's a big thing. The home ice advantage is huge. And I think Montreal's proved that they can handle that. And a good example would have been against Vegas. We all know how extra they are over there in Las Vegas with regards to the show they put on. So Montreal's prepped for that, but you make a good point. Tampa's got some cool stuff and some cool fixtures they have in the building. Another little point, Tampa's got 5 players in the top 10 scoring in the postseason. Montreal has 1. So again, this goes back to what we were saying that you touched on, Wally. Tampa can beat you in any way you'd like. They can beat you with sandpaper. They can beat you physically, of course, and they can beat you defensively. They've got Vasilevsky in a pretty good decor, and they can score goals. So, again, clear-cut favorite, but I do love Montreal. They've proved everybody wrong. They've played the underdog role very well throughout the postseason. I still like it.
What's the difference? Is our next topic. Okay, who in this Stanley Cup final, we know about Vasilevsky and Price and Kucherov, and I just like, is there someone that's going to be that star that's going to emerge here?
Boy, the difference maker. Well, I think if you're Montreal, it's your goaltending, of course. The difference maker will be the matchup between Price and Vasilevsky. I think that's the big talking point. I believe that everybody's on the same page when we can all agree that these are arguably 2 of the best goaltenders that meet up in the finals in some time. The numbers just back that up. And so we're talking about a difference maker. I'm looking at the young players. I'm looking at the young guns in Montreal right now. I'm looking at Caulfield. I'm looking at Suzuki. I'm looking at what they're able to do, because we have to all look at the top line right now in Montreal with Deneau, Lehkonen, and Gallagher. And you got to think that they're going to be busy enough with their matchup, shutting down that top line across the way in Tampa. So secondary scoring is going to be huge. It's been the key factor for Montreal over these last 3 rounds. And I'm not just talking that second line. We can also look at Perry, Armia, and or excuse me, I guess Armia's not playing, but Perry and Stahl. And even a guy like Josh Anderson, I'm looking at him. And I'm leaning on Montreal a lot right now because we all know what the tricks are, what they're capable of in Tampa. So if I'm talking about Montreal specifically, it's your goaltending, it's your top 4 on D, and it's your 2 young players up front. I'm going to stick with those guys.
Interesting. You brought up the goaltending matchup. It's the first time since, I think, 1999 that there have been 2 Vezina Trophy winners going head-to-head in the same Stanley Cup final. So it is kind of a rare thing indeed. All right. At what price? So yesterday on Twitter, I just saw someone starting to have a debate about Henrik Lundqvist and Carey Price, who was the better goalie. So I thought I would do a Twitter poll, and then the angry people came out, and people just defended, because if you're a Ranger fan or you're a Habs fan, I get that. But I was curious about I think it's almost a fair comparison. Henrik Lundqvist has great numbers. He's got 15 30-win seasons or something ridiculous. He's, the fastest guy to 400 wins. He's got a Vezina. He's been in 1 Cup final. Yeah. And he's got a Olympic gold. Carey Price has got, a Hart Trophy at Jennings. The Lester Pearson, he's also won Olympic gold, World Junior gold.
Both got lots of hardware.
Right? And I think Carey Price is the first goaltender to win 4 major awards in 1 season. Is there a fair comparison to be made between the 2 goalies? And
because for me, I don't know enough about goaltending, right? I see them both. I can look at the numbers and make comparisons. It's funny you mentioned that. I reached out to Derek Brassard about it, because he played with Henrik, of course, and he could give me a better idea. And I think he was leaning towards Carey, but he was very divided on it. And that just goes to show you how tight that race really is. And I can understand now why it was such a polarizing question. But again, it was telling to me that Brass naturally was gravitating towards Carey Price. And I think that's fair. I do. I just, from my experience playing against the 2, it just feels like Carey was always a little bit more, maybe a little more composed. And I hate saying that because Henrik's a legend in his own right. But Carey just seems to be a little more relaxed in between the pipes. Doesn't look like a guy that you can rattle quite as much. Yep. But again, it has to come down to the numbers. I hate the question, and it's a great question, but I hate having to answer it only because I think the comparables are so legitimate, and that I guess at this point in my career, or excuse me, at this point in their careers, and where Carey's at finally now, and what he's shown us this year in the postseason, I'd have to give him an edge. It might be partially because he's the flavor of the month. He's been doing so well, but I do believe Carey Price might have a slight edge.
So over 10,000 votes, 61% went with Henrik Lundqvist. Yeah. I guess my question in that was, if you're going into game 1 of the Cup final, which one of the 2 goalies would you want as your goaltender? Now, remember, you faced both of them in the postseason. So you would have a scouting report. So which one of those 2 do you want in your net?
Based off what I've seen this season and the way Carey's been playing in this postseason, I'm going with Carey Price. There's absolutely no question. And I've played both. You mentioned that, Wally. To me, it's not really even it's not a difficult answer anymore. I mean, he's just, like I said, he's not all over the place. He's not relying on his athletic ability, which he clearly has, of course, but it's his instincts. It's the way he handles himself between the pipes, the movement. He's just, everything is very efficient. He's a very efficient goalie. He doesn't rattle easy. He's not sprawling all over the place, having to make crazy acrobatic saves, although he is fully capable of doing so. He's just a guy that, to me, if you're a defenseman and you know he's back there, he's very subtle, and he handles the puck pretty well too. That's another thing with Carey Price. I think he's a better puck handler. So I'll have to go with him. Again, I'm not trying to – I love both goalies. I'm not trying to get anybody angry. I don't want any angry Ranger fans coming after me, but that's my
But just you beat both of them, right? Like in playoff series. Yeah. So the only correct answer for you would have been Craig Anderson, but you blew it. So.
I would agree with that. He's my guy. I'm always Andy. I'm always pro Andy. So we'll have to stick with that too.
All right, here we go to the final headline. Don't touch me. So Nick Suzuki's dad takes his kids to the Hockey Hall of Fame, but won't let, and you, as you know, you can go up to the cup and you get your picture around it as it sits there. Wouldn't let his kids touch the cup as children. Yeah. Is he just a crazy hockey dad? Are you all for this right now?
I mean, it's funny because I went to the Hall of Fame, the Hockey Hall of Fame, when I was probably around 10. My dad took my brother and I, we were out in the GTA area for a tournament. I can't even remember which tournament, but I took a picture with the Stanley Cup, of course, and I touched it. Had my hands all over it. That might explain why I never won one, but I don't believe in all that. I find it a little ridiculous, although it's entertaining from a fan's standpoint, of course, and it's sort of a traditional thing. But to me, it's a little ridiculous. I don't think that has anything to do with the fate of how you fare in the postseason. Of course, especially with kids. I mean, really? You're going to go that far? Although I do find it funny and it's amusing, and they're fantastic players. Yeah. So I'm not going to hate on the old man for that. But again, not something my dad ever did with us. And I don't really regret it either, despite not winning a Stanley Cup.
So which leads me to my follow-up of number 5, part B. Are you going to be a crazy hockey dad? So Jack is now 3. He's going to start playing here soon. What's Mark Methot going to be like as a hockey dad?
So it's a good question, because I think from experience now, being on both sides and actually seeing a lot of players that I've played with, former players that have kids playing, and the way they act in the crowds and being at games, the former player never really gets too excitable. Like, I've noticed that former players don't usually lose their minds. They're not too intense. Whereas I think a lot of other parents at times can be. And it's easy for me to say this now. I don't believe I'll be that guy. To be honest with you, I just want him to go out there and enjoy himself. Don't really care, how far he goes in hockey. I just want him to be happy. But, and it's funny because you go to some of these arenas now and they'll have signs, right, with basically an etiquette as far as a parent goes. And the final comment is always, especially in Ottawa, is, your son does not play, or your son or daughter, does not play for the Ottawa Senators.
Yes.
Chill, take it down a notch. So again, if you're a parent, to me, a big thing, and kids pay attention. I can still remember if I was having a tough game, I'd always be looking at my dad or my mom to see if they had any reaction. You'd be surprised how in tune your kids are to your body language. So it's something that you should be and Wally, you can attest to this because your son obviously plays. You got to be as professional and classy as you can, and always know that your kids are always watching. So it's important to stay level-headed and not act like a lunatic.
Because I've had, and it's all valid, because I've had my son say, you moved in the first period or second period, or if he's having like a rough game and I just want to go outside and, I don't know, start smoking again because of the way he's playing, he's like, oh, you didn't like that period or whatever. So one thing I had to get away from all the chatter in the stands. So I started taking photos. So I would just stand along the glass and just take photos of everybody and give them out at the end of the year. Cause you got to isolate yourself sometimes.
Yeah.
So I'm at 1 year, I was on the bench as a glorified door opener. I'm in no way should I be a head coach. And so it was the final game of the year, and we're at Sensplex in the Richcraft Sensplex. And you can stand on the very top and across the ice. And this one parent is yelling at his kid to stay on the ice. you need to stay on the ice. And I'm looking at him like I'm trying to call him off for a line change.
That's Bush League.
And so I said to him after, and then at one point the kid kept coming off and he was like, my feet really hurt today. And he's almost in tears. So I said, like, at the end of the game, what are you doing? He's like, well, he short shifts himself. I'm like, well, how about you let him short shift himself if he wants to come off the ice? His feet hurt. Yeah. And so I'll never forget that kind of stuff. It doesn't end. We had one parent, by the way, it's the very first year they're teaching 5-on-5. And so the kids can barely skate. There was an email to the coach the next day. I would really appreciate it if you would do 6-on-6 because 2 kids missed a shift in the game and therefore they lost out on ice time. And so she now wants us to go to 6-on-6. And I'm like, but that's not how the game is played.
There are so many boneheads out there. It's incredible.
It's wild. Yeah.
I feel like I'm probably going to have run-ins with other parents because of that. And my patience obviously can wear thin pretty quickly. So that's something that I'm probably going to have to be very mindful of. I might have to go to games with like a nice chamomile tea. I might have to double bag it, try to keep me very level-headed. But no, that's something that, and my dad was intense for the most, but he wasn't a screamer. Like he wasn't at the games yelling. He was quiet, which is almost more intimidating, right? And I think it's okay to push your kids a little bit, but there has to be a level of understanding. And right. So it's okay to tell your kid that he didn't play a great game. You know, tapping your kid on the back is good, but you also have to be constructive and you want them to progress. And it's okay to be a little critical at times, but it's the way you carry yourself, especially in public in front of other people. And, you know, your kids watching, right? Anyway.
Yep. It's huge. So I can't wait to watch how this all plays out for you, just to sit back as someone who's gone through it. I think it'll be interesting because if you're an NHL player, you are marked though, right? Like, pardon the pun, that you are focused on of how you behave so that your kid, because people are like, oh, he knows what it takes to get to the NHL. So we're just going to follow his kid. And
lead by example. Yeah. That's right.
So, all right. I would do that conversation all day long. Maybe we should someday in the off season. Those are the headlines built by Bonisher Excavating Inc., helping to shape the Ottawa Valley. Go to BonisherExcavating.com. All right, time for a quick break. When we come back, the Chris Cuthbert interview. It's a dandy. Quenched by Whitewater Distillery, who recently launched their Paperboat Artisanal Gin. Has notes of orange peel, coriander, and black pepper. Just try it. It's absolutely delicious. I can attest to it. Available at the LCBOs in Ottawa and the Ottawa Valley. You're watching the Wally Methot Show, powered by Barhaven Ford with their all-new Roush-inspired BFC custom vehicles. Go check them out. barhavenford.com/BFC-customs. Welcome back to the Wally Methot Show, powered by Barhaven Ford, and I couldn't be more happier to join a good friend of mine. At least I'm going to call him my good friend because I'm terrified throughout this interview he may tear me apart occasionally. He's very quick-witted and very sharp. So here is Chris Cuthbert, the play-by-play voice of the Stanley Cup Final. CC, welcome to the show.
Brett, it's good to be on the Mark Methot podcast.
I see how this is going to go. And for people that don't know, CC always used to like to call me Brett during broadcasts. So if that comes up in this show, you'll know why. CC, how are you? Like, is there exhaustion that sets in right about now, or do you get an extra burst of energy as you go to the Cup Final?
No, this is pretty good stuff. And it's, I guess every Stanley Cup playoffs is a neat ride. This one is standing out. And what's neat about it is I don't really think we saw this coming. And so for my first Stanley Cup Final call to have the first Canadian team in a decade, and I go back to the 93 run with the Canadiens, and that was my first really memorable Stanley Cup playoff run as a play-by-play guy because I had them for the first 3 rounds, and then Bob Cole took over for the final, which was always the plan and always understood. But I remember as it got later, I thought, man, this is so much fun. I'd like to see it right to the finish line one day, and this year I get that chance.
Okay, so can you tell me what it's like for you to get this opportunity? This is the reason why you went to Sportsnet and you left TSN, and it makes complete sense. But now you get a chance to call your first Cup Final. Is there, I don't know, do you feel like a bit of a rookie, but you've called, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of playoff games?
Well, I do feel like a rookie, and when it starts Monday night, there is a little bit of the unknown because I haven't done it before, and that's what's great about this business. I mean, when I got into it, I wanted to work for Hockey Night in Canada, and I checked that box in 1984, and then I wanted to be a full-time play-by-play guy, and that happened kind of in the early 90s. And since then, I guess on the hockey side, the one thing I really wanted to do was call a Stanley Cup Final. So it's been 37 years in the making, and I'm getting there. It's all good. I'm touching wood now because Yoel Armia was left back in Montreal with another COVID test, and they test us every day here. So I'm cautious. I don't want them knocking at the door telling me I just tested positive on the eve of a Stanley Cup Final.
And you guys are all
sorry, go ahead, Wally.
As you said, you're all traveling in a bubble.
I was just going to ask him how he deals with first of all, I can't believe that this is the first time in your incredibly long career that you're covering a final. How do you deal with the nerves then, Chris? Obviously you can't pound a Red Bull and a coffee like we would as players. What do you do to kind of stay calm and with it in the moment?
Oh, you know what? I had to cure myself of that Red Bull thing because a few years ago, the Red Bull was a mandatory part of the proceedings, but never good on the run to start doing that and not sleeping for a couple of days. So, and in fact, Craig Simpson's got me back on a coffee before each game, which I had eliminated from the repertoire, but it is performance enhancing. So I go with that. But you know what? We've been in the bubble, so we've been better behaved than we've been in the past. Not as many broken curfews. And you know what? It's we're getting old and boring too, so that helps at this point in time because I remember some series. We had a series in '94 where we did the Devils and the Rangers, and the Devils practiced in New Jersey. The Rangers practiced every day in Rye, and we were in Midtown Manhattan, and nothing good came of that 2 weeks, I'll tell you that. But as it turned out, it was one of the most memorable playoff series for a lot of reasons. But I'm glad I survived that one.
You said when you took over, or when you joined Sportsnet, that, quote, something special about following a Canadian team and a Canadian run during the playoffs when you're covering it in Canada. Looking forward to that again. Like, you couldn't have scripted, obviously, a better run for you now to get to your first Stanley Cup final. We probably labor on this a bit, but the fact that you get to call a Montreal series in your first Stanley Cup final, I don't know. Do you feel like a kid again?
I am amazed. It is exhilarating. I started in Montreal. My very first, I guess, major market job was at radio station Montreal, CJAD. So, I went from Yorkton, Saskatchewan to, and a brief short time in Kingston, where I had gone to school, to Montreal, where my boss, Bob Dunn, walked me in the back way to the Montreal Canadiens dressing room. And I thought, man, I've gone from tier 2 junior in Saskatchewan in 6 months to walking into a dressing room and talking to Larry Robinson and Serge Savard and Bob Gainey. And I was wow. So far over my head. I'll tell you how far over my head was. Again, most media guys would go in the front door at the Forum or the dressing room main door. But Bob Dunn was a veteran guy. He covered the Canadiens forever. And he takes me through this back way. And oncoming to me is a big veteran Canadiens defenseman. And I thought, well, you're here, you better act like you've been here before. And I went, hi, Larry. And the problem was it was Rod Langway. So that was not a good start. But anyway, I've covered this team closely in the 80s. Again, I mentioned the 93 series. And so it is special. It would have been special with any Canadian team. I'll tell you, the one thing that's not special is when you have to do an all-Canadian series because you can't win, because fans of one team are convinced you're pro the other team and vice versa. I think I've had to kind of shut Twitter down, but I think that I'm being more accepted from my Canadiens call now than I was in the first round, where I was getting a lot of advice on how I was not doing Montreal justice. So anyway, there's good and bad. It comes with the territory. And I know Mark would know that as a player, and, but it's all fun, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
So will there be Celine Dion tweets going forward or not?
Please, that you know what? You'd think after 40 years that I'd be smarter than that, but I saw that picture, and I think I've seen it prior to this year. But I saw that picture. Yeah, and I saw the picture in game one, and I thought, that's kind of neat. I should use that somehow, or we should use it in the broadcast somehow. And then in game two, I saw it, and I wasn't ready with the camera or whatever, and with my iPad to take a picture of it. So in game five, we're kind of sitting around 2 hours before the game, and it came up, and I thought, a good way to promote tonight's game. So I sent the picture out, and I was going to have some kind of tongue-in-cheek comment, but I decided to play. I thought she'd be a Canadiens fan. Well, I mean, it just stupidity followed that. I mean, I think the Celine Dion fan club members all got after me. TMZ was trying to get a hold of me, and then the next day the Gazette, and I guess it was tongue in cheek like me, but they've got it on the front page, and I'm thinking, you've got to be kidding me. So so no more Celine Dion. I just can't go there, and I might not even play the Tom Brady card here in Tampa. I'm gonna stay away from icons, so don't mess with them.
Oh, I loved it. I love the reaction that you got from it. And you brought up the whole Homer feeling, or being told that you're pro this or pro that. Does your call change because there's a Canadian team in it, or will you still try and stay fairly neutral?
Well, I think when it's a Canadian team versus an American team, you start to look a little bit through the lens of the Canadian team. I know when it's a Canadian matchup, I actually, I'm going to say it. I shouldn't say it, but I waste mental energy trying to play even up. I've got this little hourglass in my head. And at one point, if I say something about the Winnipeg Jets, then I know that sooner or later, the next comment better be about the Montreal Canadiens, or vice versa. And it's always in the back of my mind. You'd be amazed at how many calls I had graded by fans that they didn't like the energy level of my call in previous rounds. And I had Leaf fans upset that I was clearly a Canadiens homer, and Montreal fans from across the country disgraced by my pro Leaf call. So I'm always thinking I get less of that, is what I'm saying, and I'm maybe less worried about it when it's not an all Canadian matchup. But you know what? I mean, there's how many great Canadian players on the Tampa Bay Lightning, and I mean, and it's a team with a profile now that I know there's lots of fans across the country that like the Tampa Bay Lightning. So, I mean, when I would do a playoff series, and if Mark Methot was in that game, I wanted to tell Mark Methot's story, and any player that had grown up in Canada. I wouldn't have been high on the London Knight stuff with Mark Methot because I used to have an association with Guelph. And I'm not a big fan of London, but anyway, but I would want to do you justice as well as as the team. So, Danny Gallivan had the great line, and I should put it on my Twitter handle, but in fact, I acknowledge in my Twitter handle that this whole issue, because it's so much wrapped around being a play-by-play guy in Canada. I don't cheer for your team, and I don't hate your team. So, but Danny would say that bias is always in the ear of the beholder, and that's how he handled it. And even the great Danny Gallivan, I'm sure, was for many years thought of outside of Montreal as pro Canadian, but he was so good that I don't think anybody worried about it too much. And fortunately for him anyway, there was no social media to really follow up on it.
And it's so true. Like I always used to say, I get paid the same whether your team wins or loses. It doesn't really matter to me. That was always the argument of people. But you did get to call perhaps the greatest team ever. And that was, I think, 5 years with the Ottawa Senators and working alongside me. But people don't appreciate, I think, enough how good a regional broadcast the Ottawa Senator fans got when they got you, Gord Miller, Ray Ferraro, Mike Johnson, Jay McLennan, all these guys who were top notch. You got a full national broadcast with these individuals. Do you miss covering, I guess, the Ottawa Senators because you got to get a little bit closer because you did more games?
Well, again, you make a good point. It's a regional broadcast. So at that point, I think this confuses fans because they get that regional perspective the whole year. And we slant totally or a great deal more to the home team in a regional broadcast. And I'm going to follow up on this in a second because one of my career highlights was that 2015 run, for sure. But now you go from hearing, Brian Mudryk and the guys in Montreal and who do a great job, and Gord and others in Ottawa, Dennis Bayak in Winnipeg, across the country, John Shorthouse and John Garrett in Vancouver, Rick Ball in Calgary, and Jack Michaels and Louis DeBrusque in Edmonton, and you get such a great focused on the local market regional broadcast. Then the national guys come in and the fans are convinced, well, A, you don't know as much about the team, and B, you don't care about them. But at that point, what we're doing is bringing that broadcast to the national audience, so it doesn't sound the same. And I guess for a lot of fans who like that local, the hardcore home fans like that regional approach better. But let me just tell you, 2015, I mean, we were all on board. I felt as excited, maybe more excited about that run in 2015 because it was so incredible, so magical, so unexpected. I think it compares a great deal with what I'm doing now, even though Ottawa didn't go to the Cup. And I only got to call a couple of those playoff games for NBC actually in that year. But I mean, for drama and storytelling and just sheer excitement, there was nothing like that. I mean, I still will tell you that my favorite regular season game call ever was in the last week when they needed pretty well to win out. I think there might have been room to lose one, but I don't know if that was the case. And Pittsburgh comes to town, and it's the last game. You look on the schedule and think, man, can they get through that? And Crosby scores in the first minute. Pittsburgh goes up 3-0. And somehow they fight their way back. They get a shorthanded goal to get a little momentum. They score early in the third period. I don't remember details of games very well, but I remember this one. And then Hoffman scoring with the empty net. And then I'm getting chills thinking about Stone in overtime. I mean, there's, the only regret I had is after he scored in Philadelphia to clinch it, and we left the rink and we're headed to the airport. I thought, man, that run was etched in stone. And I thought, where was that when I needed it? And I mean, that was something. That was just and the Hamburglar and how many corny jokes did we say about robberies anyway, it was all great stuff.
That was a great run. But that game, you probably don't remember this. I had to host the beginning of the game, but I had to do the over the boards interview on the bench and then run down the tunnel, get it to the elevator, and get up to your broadcast booth to host the show. Well, I come around the Zamboni tunnel and I wipe out, and I'm rolling. I mean, now my chin is bleeding. I've now gone face first, and so my microphone goes flying, and I'm like, now I'm dropping F-bombs, but I'm terrified. I'm about to go on television, and somehow it almost went national. I think that game. No, it would have been regional. I've got blood, so I'm up in the press box trying to tampen this down with some more makeup, and you're just like you're beside yourself. I'm flustered. I'm gonna lose my mind, sort of, and I can just see you there the whole time. Just that little grin going, I love every second of this.
Hey, I'll make you feel better. I got a story like that. It wasn't on a broadcast day, but the day before, it was a series in Boston. I don't know if it was Montreal and Boston or not. It would have been, it probably was the 88 or the 90 Stanley Cup Final. And I was on the crew as an extra reporter, and this was the final. And that's why I was just, I was kind of in the background. But the day before one of the games in Boston, we had Don Cherry did a segment with Bobby Orr on the Bruin bench. And for whatever reason, I'm standing on the ice watching this just to stay out of the way, but to kind of be able to hear everything. And as this is starting, I'm thinking, man, Bobby Orr's right there. I got to get something to sign for my kids. So I realized that, a short bit away is the Bruin store. So I decide to charge down the tunnel toward the dressing room. And Mark would remember in the old Boston Garden, I think, did you play there? Or?
No, I never played.
No, you're too young. Too young.
Way too young.
The old Garden had this really, old kitchen tile on the floors. And so I'm running and I'd been standing on the ice, shoes are wet, running down the rubber. And as soon as I hit that tile, I was plastered, face planting up against the wall. I went down and I wasn't sure I was getting up, but I did, crawled up. Fortunately, nobody saw this carnage and got up, got to the store, got back just in time to get an Orr signature for my kids. But man, I paid the price for that autograph.
That's great stuff. Do you have parents or players or agents or coaches, GMs, like mad at you after certain games or annoyed at your call, or who's the worst of the group?
I don't think I've ever had that. I did have it in junior, and it was a good learning lesson for me. In Saskatchewan, again, I remember a game where one of our defensemen kind of left the game with an injury halfway through the game, and I never called his name afterwards. And his father was pretty upset that I didn't follow up on. And to be honest with you, it just kind of, we were a team that won 14 games out of 60 that year, so it was kind of it was one of those regular 7-1 thrashings, and I wasn't sure if he'd been benched or even noticed that he was not taking the regular turn anymore. And it was a rookie move on my part, and I heard about it from that dad. But for the most part, the funniest story I've got, and it's not me, but I worked with somebody in Montreal, and I won't out him, but he's high profile. And at one point, he called Terry Ryan, a guy from Red Deer, and Terry Ryan had played junior in Red Deer, but he was a Newfoundlander, and everybody knew he was a Newfoundlander. And I'm sure that my high profile colleague knew that too, but had just made the Red Deer connection for whatever. So I get back to the hotel after the game, and my message light is on. And I listened to a 2-minute voice message in a very thick Newfoundland accent from a guy from Labrador City, Newfoundland, or Labrador City, Labrador. And he goes on this diatribe as how we all should have known, and I should have corrected him, but all's okay now. Canadiens won the game, so it's all right, Chris. And if you ever come up to Labrador City, I'll buy you a beer. So so that's the kind of important feedback you get on Hockey Night in Canada.
Oh, that's great.
You still have a blazer, blue blazer?
Oh yeah, I definitely have a blazer. I'm not saying I can fit into that blazer, but that was my goal. My goal was to wear powder blue. I grew up watching all those guys. Dave Hodge in particular was a hero of mine, but Gallivan and the rest of them, it was, that's, you grew up with that every Saturday night, and that's where I dreamed. Never really thought it would come true, but that was the dream, to work for Hockey Night in Canada.
Do you have a routine, game day routine?
Oh, very much, and probably. I know Mark would probably be able to time his pregame or game day routine down to the minute. Mine's pretty regimented too. And Mark, I know you'll be proud of this. It also includes at least a 60-minute, but preferably a 90-minute nap. But it's all pretty regimented, from reading the notes in the morning, or reading the newspaper articles. Going through the game notes, finishing your own notes in this era, Zoom calls with players and coaches, getting those quotes onto your board. After lunch, maybe a quick review of that, the very important nap. And It's very predictable. It's when people think, well, it's game day, you got nothing else to do. It's funny how quickly game day becomes game night, and that's probably more so for you than me. But in the past, when I started, I couldn't eat breakfast in the morning. When first 5 years on Hockey Night, I was really wound up. But now it's another day at the office, and it's a lot more enjoyable that way. And you actually try and almost manufacture nerves sometimes just to make sure you're on. I won't have to do that Monday. I'm sure there'll be a little bit of that, and that'll be good.
I'm sure working with me probably created a few nerves because you never knew. I was pretty unpredictable. But I've never seen you get rattled in a booth ever.
Oh,
has there ever been anything that's gone terribly wrong?
Oh, that you know what? I'll tell you, I got rattled. And this goes back to maybe one of my first answers. I was rattled after the Suzuki goal in overtime in what was that, game 5 of the first round, because I thought I hit the post. It's funny, I'd had a conversation, somebody who knows an important guy in game ops was saying, I'm going to talk to him this week. And this was about a month ago. And I said, would you ask them to put more padding in the net? Because I think late in the season, we had one of those where it had come out so fast that they had to stop the game 40 seconds later because the referees thought it was off the bar. Everybody thought it had hit the crossbar. And for some reason, back in the old day, you bent the twine. Remember, the net would bulge. You bulge the twine. Now everything's so tight, and they got the equipment in there, and it's not padded very well, and it comes out as fast as it goes in. And I've had a few of those, and those are the worst. Not being absolutely sure the puck's in the net. And, there's this 2-on-0 in overtime, and you're thinking, this is it. This is the game. And for a split second, I thought it hit the post. And I was kind of like, how'd he miss? And then I could see the reaction of the player, and then you knew. But I'll tell you what, that was not a good night going home. That's like Mark never did this, but it would have been like him giving the puck away for the game-winning goal. That was not a good sleep after that game.
Is that do you spend a lot of time thinking about game-winning goals and how you're going to call them, or they just all come naturally? So you're going into the gold medal game, you've got overtime coming up, and are you thinking how am I going to end this?
In overtime, I did. I didn't, to be honest with you, I didn't even think about overtime, and I'm going to admit something I shouldn't admit. But Ron Wilson didn't know it either. I didn't know what the exact rules for I didn't even think about overtime, so I wasn't even sure. Okay, it was one thing during the round robin, but I know it's different now. And even Ron Wilson, months later told me that he wasn't exactly sure how long they were going in overtime either. It became a 10-minute overtime period. So for whatever reason, I never thought that the gold medal game would go to overtime. I didn't sleep the night before that game. It was a noon game, so we're into the middle of the afternoon, and it was an emotional ride, and it ends tied in regulation. And I'm starting, believe it or not, I'm starting to get a little dopey because I haven't slept, and so I'm doing mental exercises. I did a radio interview to keep sharp. Ray Ferraro was sitting beside me, and he looked at me like I was nuts for going over to do this interview for 5-6 minutes during the intermission. But I was just trying to stay mentally in the game. And right before the players came to center ice to drop the puck, I was still, working through things in my head. And I thought, if this was soccer, the next goal would be the golden goal. And I kind of went, ooh, I like that. And so, and I'd done something similar in, I don't know if you guys remember the 5 overtime game, the Primo overtime goal, and you're going after every overtime intermission, you're thinking, when's this going to end and how should we end it? And I think in the 3rd or 4th intermission period, I thought, you know what, whoever scores, he's the marathon man tonight. And that worked out well. I liked it. I don't know if anybody else did, but I liked it. So the golden goal sounded like something that, it was no matter who scored it for Canada. I'm not sure I would have used it for the States, but whoever scores it for Canada, that's the way we're going to go. So That's you're always thinking of it. To me, it's like being a headline writer. You're thinking about something that puts the right stamp on the night, and so you know that there's going to be. I read a lot of guys that say, it's completely spontaneous. I understand that, but I also am pretty sure most guys have 5 or 6 things that they may or may not say, or that one day they've thought of. I think the greatest call ever is the touch them all Joe. And, I never talked to Tom Cheek about it, and I don't diminish this for one iota, but I'm pretty sure that somewhere in the back of his mind, he thought that one day there's going to be a big home run and he's going to use that. And he was smart enough and great enough to wait for the perfect time to do it.
Does Chris Cuthbert have a Montreal Canadiens winning the Stanley Cup call that you plan to use if they do?
He can't give that up, can he?
No, you know what? Yes, I don't yet. I don't yet. Like the one for now, I guess they're not great calls when you got to explain them. But the other night it was Saint Jean Baptiste Day, Fête Nationale, and so I thought going to overtime, do I do it's the first time in 28 years, or it's the first time in a decade that, and then I thought, this is a holiday in Quebec. There's 1 million people outside the building. And so I thought of Fête Canadien, and I ended up with a lot of people on Twitter saying, what the heck did you say? And what does that mean? And everything else. So I thought it was pretty good, but I guess, it wasn't quite as good as I thought.
Who's your favorite travel partner of all your broadcast friends?
Beyond you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, who's my favorite travel partner? I don't know if I have a favorite. I hate the favorite. Like, Mark, would you say who your favorite defensive partner was, or would that?
No, because you're throwing everybody else under the bus.
Exactly.
Right?
You can't do that. You can't do that. Listen, could not be more fortunate with the people I've worked with. And somebody once asked me, I think it was, I was just asked recently, has there been anybody you've worked with that you didn't get along with? And I've had over 60, I think the last count was somewhere in the 60s of color commentators. And the only guy I could answer was, remember George Michael from the Sports Machine? He was doing, one year he was doing the Washington Capitals games, and for whatever reason, the Hockey Night in Canada production crew was asked to help out. And Danny Gallivan had gone down there the year before and done all the regional games for a year. And then they gave it to George Michael, but for whatever reason, Hockey Night in Canada was sending Jim Houston. I was on with Jim Houston, and I didn't realize he had done the same thing as I did. And actually, he answered the same way. But George Michael had this attitude about, he was very condescending about Danny Gallivan, which is mistake number one beside any other Canadian broadcaster. And so it was a long 3-hour telecast, because I just thought, you do your thing. I'll do what I'm expected to do. But everybody else, I mean, hockey guys are hockey guys. And I've found Canadian football guys the same way. And in the Olympics, Olympians are the same. They're just great people and great to be around. And I've learned something from every one of them, which is, and now I'm with Craig Simpson, and I'm really amazed. And I shouldn't be, because he was a coach behind the bench back in 2006 when the Oilers went to the Stanley Cup. He was an assistant, but he's a real smart guy. And one of my favorite years was 93. And Dick Irvin actually, I worked with a legend. I mean, it doesn't get better than working with Dick Irvin. But Dick said to me once, he heard me on a radio broadcast, and somebody had asked me about the Islanders. I said, that's a team I'd like to have played industrial league hockey with, because the guys in the room are so good. And you'd go in that room after any game, and you talk to Glenn Healy or Pat Flatley or Ray Ferraro or Steve Thomas. They're all Mark Methot like guys who you'd love talking hockey with. And as it turned out, I ended up working with 3 of them in the booth. Pat for a short time, but but Heels and Ray more often. And you know, just awesome to be able to work with all of them.
How many air miles does Chris Cuthbert have?
I'm slumping. This pandemic's hurt me. So I'm at 3.5 million, and I've got 4 million in the, just down the road. But I'm struggling here. This last 2 years it's not been good for air miles.
What do you get when you get to 4 million? Like, do they just send a plane to you at that point? Because you get a gift every million, don't you?
At 3 million, we got a 2 business class seats anywhere in the world. And I thought, where would I go that I would not normally run out to buy those tickets? And so we went to China, which was an amazing trip. But, I figure at 4 million, the balloon should come out of the ceiling of the plane. And I was a little upset because I was told that a few 3 million guys were actually met as they walked off the plane when they hit 3 million. So I kind of strided off like I was something important when I knew I was going over the top, and there wasn't anybody there. But anyway, they treat me pretty well. And I know you guys read about, Air Canada and that on Twitter every once in a while when a flight gets delayed, but they've taken pretty good care of me for the last 40 years.
Nice. They are very good. I've had a few delays, but do you have a favorite airport you like to fly through?
No, but I'll tell you the strangest airport travel story is, and I guess you weren't I'm trying to think if this was an Ottawa game. It would have been an Ottawa game, I think, but it was we had back-to-back Boston, Ottawa Rangers. I'm pretty sure it was Ottawa. And we're in Boston, and a snowstorm hits. We're flying. I don't know why we were flying from Boston to New York. We should have just got on the train. But we were flying the next day, and there's a snowstorm. So we get to the airport 9, and they move us to 10. They move us to 11. They move us to noon. And I'm collecting, and I'm glad I did. I collected the different boarding passes, and I actually tweeted it out, which may have saved my job. Because it's 1 o'clock now, another boarding pass. And finally, I called our boss at the time, Mark Milliere, and I said, Mark, we're having a little trouble here getting out. And about 1:30 or 2, I heard that LaGuardia had been shut down. So we don't have all the details, but I'm thinking if it's snowing here, it must be a bad storm there. And if LaGuardia is shut down, we better think about, driving, even though we don't know, they're not flying. So what kind of drive is it in a snowstorm? So they decide they're going to get a car for us. And then Ray says, it's a snowstorm. We got to go in an SUV. So the car is not good enough. We got to wait another hour for the SUV. And now it's 3 o'clock. And anyway, to make a long story longer, we were going literally at the same time as a train. And we were trying to calculate if we could get to whatever, Hartford or wherever, where they could drop us off on a train so we could get right into Penn Station, which is where MSG is. And we were about 5 or 10 minutes behind the whole way. So now we've got to drive right in. And our guy misses the bridge into Manhattan. And I can see Manhattan. I'm actually pointing. I think we're supposed to be going over there. We're going to New Jersey. He dropped us off for a 7 o'clock game. He dropped us off in front of the building at 7:05. We went from the truck into the building. It was 10 minutes into the game before we actually got on the air. And I think they called in Gord and Aaron Ward for 10 minutes. I'm not sure why they just didn't pick up the MSG broadcast for 5 or 10 minutes, but that's the only game I've ever showed up late for, because we couldn't get out of Boston in an entire day to get to New York, which again turned out to be about a 3-hour drive.
That's outstanding. Of all the games I'm sure you've kept track, we'll include CFL, junior, whatever. How many games have you called play-by-play for?
Don't know. And it's really weird. I don't know why I didn't keep absolute track of them. I guess I've tried to figure out, it might be around somewhere between 800 and 900 CFL games. And there is a guy in the States who for some reason keeps track of everybody's national telecasts. And I think he's got me around I don't 1,200 national telecasts, but that doesn't include any regional broadcasts, which are, you know, all the Ottawa Senator games, Maple Leaf regionals. So I'm not sure, but I guess a ballpark guess would be 3,000 games, somewhere around there.
Okay, so is there one obscure sport you would love to do play-by-play for?
I've done some obscure sports. I did ski jumping in 1988 at the Olympics. I don't know if you remember Matti Nukkinen was the Finnish star of the day, and he was a bit of a wild card guy. I think he's passed away, but he was in jail for a while. It was and Eddie the Eagle.
Eddie the Eagle.
I covered Eddie the Eagle and Matti Nukkinen in '88. In fact, I've covered two athletes. Nukkinen swung his skis at me because we were, you know, he was the story, and you know that was when you're in ski jumping. There's not a whole lot to do, so we were on the Matti Nukkinen story big time, and I think we got a little too close. He didn't like our attention, and he kind of swung his skis at me one day. But I covered Eddie the Eagle in '88 and Tanya Harding in figure skating. So there's two movies from athletes I've covered, which is pretty wild. But you know, I started my pathway into Hockey Night in Canada was calling soccer games. I called the Montreal Manique of the North American Soccer League. Oh, yeah. And that team was owned by Molson's, which owned the production house for Hockey Night in Canada. And so they kind of, when Danny Gallivan and Bill Hewitt retired, they were looking for new people. And they kind of recruited Jim Houston and I at the same time. And so I always thought they had pretty good scouts. I was biased, of course, but did think. But anyway, the fact that I did soccer for a Molson Brewery owned team is the reason I'm on Hockey Night in Canada, which is kind of interesting. But whether I want to do high lie or cricket, no, I'm not sure there's anything left that I have to call.
Chris, but just on that note really quickly, because you caught my attention, when you're covering a different sport like ski jumping, how do you prepare for that? Like, are you doing like a course leading up to it just to know what you're talking about?
Full immersion, you know, and CBC was great at that, Mark, because when they decided you were going to, they never sent you to an Olympics without having been at another event. I went to Bulgaria, and this was during the Persian Gulf War. I went to Bulgaria. Taller Cranston and I were the only guys on a plane into Sofia, Bulgaria, because at that point they were worried about, you know, planes getting shot out of the sky. And it was one of the eeriest flights ever because it was a huge plane. And I'm exaggerating a little. There probably was 10 people on the flight, and we were two of them. But I had a week with Taller Cranston, which was not just figure skating 101. It was figure skating 101 and then the advanced. And for a week I learned everything about it. And when I called kayak, the rowing and canoe kayak at the Olympics, they sent me to the World Championships, and I met Adam Van Koeverden at the World Kayak Championships the year or two before in just outside Atlanta. And I remember when I met him, I thought, man, this is a different cat. This guy is a different amateur athlete. He had a pro level persona, character. And I don't mean it in any negative way, but I knew he didn't suffer fools at all. And I had to be sharp to cover Van Koeverden because you were going to have to earn his respect. And when he won gold in Athens in 2004, I was the first guy to meet him as he came out of the boat at the area where they what do they call that, Brent? Where the area, the interview area. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Oh, the mix zone or whatever.
The mix zone. At the mix zone, I was the Canadian guy to meet him and say, you know, how does it feel to be now Olympic champion? And I got such a great interview from him. In fact, they were trying to get him hustled along for the medal ceremony. And he even told the Olympic volunteer there, I'm not finished yet, because, you know, I kind of earned that respect. And he understood this was his 15 minutes of, this was his moment, and he was going to take advantage of it, not in a cocky way, but he was an Olympic champion, and he had the podium. And I don't think that would have gone nearly as well had I not been at a World Championships a year or two earlier. So they always prepared you. I did gymnastics in 1988, and Elfie Schlegel, again, it's your color commentators. Elfie Schlegel was as knowledgeable, as talented a broadcaster as I've ever worked with. She knew everybody in gymnastics. She knew all the Russians, all the Americans, all the important players. And she taught me enough of what I needed to know about the sport, so that when we were covering that 88 Olympic championship, it was her and I and a cameraman. And at the next table, there were 16 people doing it for NBC with all their researchers and stats people and commentators and the like. And I thought we were just as good as they were, because Elfie was better than anybody else. And, I took a lot of pride out of doing other sports. I've called Olympic gold medals for Canada in 5 different sports, which I don't think anybody else has done. But I'm at the point in my career now where I'm probably not as adept as picking up new stuff. So I'm ready not to be exposed for my lack of knowledge in other sports now. So I'll let somebody else do that. But those are some career highlights for me for sure.
Oh, that's fantastic. I know surfing is now a Olympic sport this year. Maybe you can get on that.
Yeah, but that'd be a gig that I might want to, do a little research on. Yeah.
You are a 5-time Canadian Screen Award winner. Why is it that you can't put a top on the water bottle in the press box in your booth?
It's because you got to focus on what's important, and what's important is down below on the ice or on the field. And so, there's a lot of cords in the booth, and you know what? I think I've only spilled once this year. So it might've been a TSN thing. It might've been you rattling me before games, because Craig Simpson was warned, and I think he was a little concerned, because I think he's very precise in how he handles things. But I think there's been only one bit of spillage this year, which I think speaks volumes about my TSN career, and how sometimes I just had to carry the show.
The one thing people don't know is Chris Cuthbert was notorious for spilling water all over his notes. I'd probably say just prior to the game. And so you'd have all these highlights of all the markers, and it's just a big, almost blob by the end of it. It was entertaining to watch, because people he just spilled his water again.
You know what, we did a game down below, and this was not a spill, but I don't know if you remember when we were doing games between the benches, and it was in Washington one night, and Ovechkin's always at the end of the bench, so he's right beside me. If he wasn't on the ice, he was beside me. And early on in the game, and down on the benches, you could not have that chart. I learned that later, but because you could not look down, or you're going to get one right in the forehead. But early on in that game, somebody had, the snow was flying, and it was all over my board. And it was like, I'm going old school here with Mary Poppins and Dick Van Dyke with the chalk on the sidewalk, and then it rained. Well, that's what it looked like. It was just a complete blur. And it will be one of my favorite moments, because Ovechkin looked at me, looked at the notes, and then looked back at me and just shook his head while the game was going on. It was pretty cool.
That's great.
We're going to wrap up, but what are you looking? What's the big storyline do you think that plays out in this game? Is it Carey Price and Andrei Vasilevsky? Is there something else that you're looking at to see how this is going to play out?
Well, this is, I was thinking about calling this world-class, but these guys are all world-class players, but this is as high a level of goaltending matchup as you could get in a Stanley Cup final. And that's going to be, they're going to be 2-1 games, I would think. They're going to be 1-0, 2-1 if the form chart holds here. Tampa's got that ability to score more, but I think it's about the goaltenders and who can find a shred of offense and it is amazing that the Lightning have a team that was just what was the greatest show on ice or whatever it was, is now so good defensively. I mean, the Islanders didn't get a sniff in Game 7. So I think it's going to be the goaltenders. I mean, this Armia news today, I don't know how it follows up, but it's concerning because, the beauty of the Canadiens is they've had everybody contributing. I guess Jake Evans would be a good fit to go in there if he's healthy enough to go in and stay in. But that's a tough break for the Canadiens. But I mean, can Cole Caulfield keep what he's doing? I'm fascinated by the way he has made an impact in his first year. He's a kid that wears his passion for the game on his sleeve, which is really neat. And I don't know what, Mark, your expectations were for him after sitting out the first 2 games, but he's been kind of special to watch since then.
Yeah, he's not lacking confidence because during one of your broadcasts, they showed him walking in with a fedora and a 3-piece suit. So clearly a very, very confident kid. I'm like you, though. I was surprised. I didn't think he'd be that dominant, but been a fantastic player to watch.
Yeah. And I mean, I mentioned, I think it was about a 24-goal pace he was playing on, and then he scored the other night. So it's even more now. And you're thinking it's probably unfair to be doing that projection on what he's doing in the playoffs, because it's even harder to score now. But it is impressive. And this is, I think they understand that this doesn't come along. And Corey Perry's made that point. I mean, they've captured, pardon the pun, they've captured old lightning in a bottle for 3 rounds. And I was thinking about this, and I don't know how far Ottawa is going to progress next year, but I think we all think they're going to take the next step. But there is a very good possibility that Montreal, Toronto, or Boston doesn't make the postseason next year. I mean, if you're thinking about Tampa's probably going to make it, Florida looks like a team that it's on the way. Now, Florida might miss too, but next year going forward, it's going to be tough to make the playoffs. And it's going to be even tougher for those teams if Ottawa makes the next step like they did in the second half of this year. So, it's take advantage of the opportunity while it's here for Montreal.
That's well said.
Last question before we go. Philip Deneau likes to enjoy pizza after every series clinching win. How will Chris Cuthbert celebrate his final Stanley Cup game?
Well, it may involve a beverage, and I'll tell you what, being in protocol through all this, that's been tough to do. So listen, I'll savor it regardless. I mean, the best part of it is after you've done a good show, and this is, again, I shouldn't pretend to be making comparisons to being players, but I love the fact that after you've done a good broadcast or a good series, that you get to share a few beverages with the people around you, because the production crew here has been great as it was in Ottawa. The guys in the van in Ottawa are as good as anybody that does it, but these people are first rate, and you love telling stories after it's over, and it's always good when the beverages are cold and wet.
And very good. And I've always enjoyed sitting around afterwards and having a few beverages with you. Occasionally you paid, which was not expected. So
you caught me at a weak moment. I miss actually the fact that I'm not getting detailed notes for the Stanley Cup Final. But anyway, you must have forgotten my email address.
I used to. So for every Sens broadcast, I would make notes, but there'd always be one mistake. Now, nobody else ever pointed it out, except I would wait for the email I would get from CC after every time sending them out going, this is wrong. And I'm like, I just spent 8 hours on these notes.
I think you always did it on purpose just to make sure I was reading them. So yeah, you like the attention.
I missed our time together, CC, but all the best calling this game. You are a world-class broadcaster, and we love hearing your call. So
I appreciate that, guys. It's been a pleasure being on the Methot podcast. And when do I pick up my vehicle from Barhaven? So,
there we go.
We'll have that shipped over to you right away with some whitewater beer.
Very good. Excellent, boys. That's been a pleasure. Love it.
Good luck, Chris.
Thanks. Cheers.
All right, welcome back to the show, and time now for On the Points, brought to you by sportsinteraction.com/Wally and Methot. Sports Interaction is Canada's odds makers. Log on to sportsinteraction.com/Wally and Methot today to get in on the action. Must be 19 years of age or older. Okay, Meth, here we go. Stanley Cup Final goes tonight. Let's get the series out of the way now. Who wins? How many games?
Whoa, and this is tough. And you know what? I'm going to go off my bracket at this point because I have Tampa winning out. But because Montreal has made some waves here, I've got the Habs. I can't believe I'm saying this. And but I'm also saying this because I don't want to cheer against them. I've found myself become a bit of a fan only because they've been the underdog, and I played with Corey Perry. He helped me win he helped me win a Memorial Cup in London. So we have ties there. I've got ties to Montreal in a weird way. And I just love the fan base and how passionate they are. So I'm going to go with Montreal. I've got them in 7. I wanted to do 6, but I'm going to go 7. And really, I do think they have a good opportunity here. Kucherov is the X factor. And if that guy ain't playing and he's not rolling, I think Montreal's got a great opportunity. And talk about how opportunistic they've been over this postseason, right? It's almost kind of like St. Louis 3 years ago, the way they peaked at the right time. Montreal's peaking at the right time.
Interesting. And I should add, you do have other ties with Luke Richardson and with Alex Burrows behind the bench.
Yep.
Which is how I'm looking at
Burr, not so much, but yeah, everybody else.
Well, you know what? If he wins, he can buy you a new watch because he'll have a big bonus. Okay. So so there is Alex Burrows for me and Luke Richardson, who is a huge factor. Dominic Ducharme, who I know very well, and people think we look alike for some strange reason.
Doppelganger, yeah.
And I know Shea Weber pretty well. There's a couple of players. So I've never been this is the first season in 25 years that I've cheered for anybody to win or lose. On the other side, I went to Victor Hedman's house in Sweden just before he got drafted, met his whole family.
Nice.
I've known him ever since. We've chatted. John Cooper's been very good. There's lots of tie-ins. So I'm at a loss here, but I still think I am going to have to pick the Bolts.
Okay, good. So we have a legitimate matchup finally, you and I.
I don't even know if Kucherov matters. They played pretty well without him this year. And then magically he's ready to go. And we'll move past that.
The small sample size, though, that I'm basing my numbers off of is just that Game 7. Now, I know it's Game 7 and they tend to be lower scoring, but a 1-0 game with a hurt Kucherov that played about 17 minutes or 16 and a half minutes it was. Without him rolling, I feel like it affects the rest of that line. So that's why I went with what I went. But you're right, Wally. I agree with you. You've got guys that can pick up the slack very easily. Again, they've got 5 guys. I'm just wondering how much they're relying on Kucherov. So that's why maybe it's a wild card. But again, I like that you picked the Bolts. We have a bit of a head-to-head now.
And don't forget, Andre Vasilevsky trains here in the offseason. So there's another tie into Tampa. But that Tampa, you have John Cooper, who just seems to be the coach that everybody wants to play for. I've met him. We've sat around. We've chatted. He's one guy I would love to have drinks with on a regular basis. He's good. He's easygoing. He doesn't give you that same attitude, but he's confident as hell, which is that borderline cocky. He gets you feeling as a hockey team that you're going to win every game because of just the way he conducts himself. Boy, I'd like to see him. I mean, it's not like he hasn't won before, but I'd still like to see him be able to guide this team. And he's going to be the head coach of the Olympic team for Team Canada. So you have to cheer for him.
Yeah.
No, you're not going to cheer. Okay.
All I'll add to that is that John Cooper's also had the opportunity to coach in Tampa, where they've had a really good team and a very good core group of players for the last X amount of years. I do believe that, especially with coaching, a lot gets thrown in on that, and a lot of people lump that into what the effect has on a group. And sometimes I think it gets a little too blown up. It comes down to the core group of players you have in that room. The coaches come in and give a system, but players run the team, quite frankly. And you've
got to manage those people.
Pardon?
You've got to manage those people.
I know you do, but you're talking about NHL players. You're talking about a team. Look at Montreal. They lose their head coach. Luke, of course, is very competent. But my point is, the team still keeps moving on forward. I bet you, and I'm not just saying this lightly, I bet you a team could run itself for a game or two and you wouldn't really know a huge difference without the coaching staff behind the bench. Very bold comment by me, but I mean it.
I'm okay with that. I don't think you're terribly wrong, but my point is of keeping them all happy all year long.
Especially throughout the course of a long year. And when you're facing adversity with injuries or maybe things aren't rolling well and you need to tweak the system, I would agree with you. All I'm saying is with a team like Tampa right now and how well-rounded they are with the goaltending, the decor up front. I mean, and I'm not taking anything away from Coop. He's a fantastic coach. I've only heard really good things about him, but it's easy to be a really nice, happy-going, easygoing coach, players coach, if you will, when your team is that strong.
Okay, but all right, and we'll move on. But I'm going to throw this out here because good teams, the coaches always just get, wow, look who he's got on this team. You've got to manage Kucherov, Stamkos, Braden Point.
I know. Could you imagine the horror of managing good players and how
you get attitudes? You got guys that get sulky.
Wally, no, you don't. You do a little bit at times. Listen, hey, we're talking about hockey players right now. I feel like they're like some of the lowest maintenance guys to have to coach and handle off the ice. Anyway, we'll agree. I mean, I think you agree with me to a degree. I think you're just trying to have the coaches back a little bit, and I respect that. But come on, man.
I just think that every year they always look at the coach of the year and pick whoever had the worst team and managed to be able to squeak into the playoffs. I just think the coaches who have great high-end talent always get shuffled to the side. We're going, well, look what you've got to coach. You still have to manage all those attitudes.
Yeah,
I don't think it's that easy. I'm not disagreeing
with that. There is definitely a role for a coach. Absolutely. All I'm saying is I think it gets a little overblown.
All right. Not a coaching guy. Okay, fine. So who's the Conn Smythe? And does it just come down to either it's Vasilevsky or Carey Price?
Yeah, it's your winner or loser, right? So if you've got Montreal to win, you have to pick Carey Price. To me, it's a lock at this point. And if you're Tampa, you could make an argument. I mean, you can make an argument between Kucherov. Look at his numbers. His numbers has to have him at least in the conversation. Hedman, maybe a little bit, but mostly Vasilevsky and Kucherov.
If Braden Point has 4 goals in this series, two of them are series winners. I think he could be a sneaky one to just pop in there.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good point. And again, though, it comes down to Kucherov, right? I want to know what Point and some of these guys can produce and how well they'll play point production wise without Kucherov in the lineup. Kucherov's been a big topic today on our show, and I think it warrants that. I think that's how good he is. He really is that good of a player, and I think a lot of players feed off him.
Well, I'm shocked you like the good players because you don't like the good coaches. So I just figured you would have blown off and picked a third line plug.
Players win games.
Okay, so also on sportsinteraction.com, there are prop bets, and there's all kinds of these things. And so I started going through them, and I made some bets. I actually still have a bet up there. This bothers me, is that Mark Stone is going to win the Conn Smythe. And it just sits there and looks at me every day of the bad choice I just made and lost $10. So, so you can pick on who you think is going to score the first goal of the game tonight, or who's going to score in the game. So I picked Tyler Johnson is going to open the scoring in this game. My $5 bet is going to pay me $90. Would you do that bet?
Ooh, I might actually go on and do that. I don't mind. It's funny. And I'll let you say all of your props first, but I looked through them as well. And there's some really fun ones in there that you can play with. And I think some of them are some pretty good numbers there that are in favor if you're willing to put a couple bucks on them here and there. But I'll let you go through yours first, Wally.
Because I don't want to do like the easy, it's going to be Nikita Kucherov. You got to if you want to make a little bit of money, you got to.
The prop bets are always the most fun, and you're going to get instant gratification if you hit any of them in that game. So I agree. I'll go over mine after.
Okay. I took Andre Palat to score in the game. And my favorite one that they've come up with, and I haven't seen this before, does Cole Caulfield score 3 goals in this series?
I really like that one. I really like that bet, and I would take it. 100%.
It's a great bet. Yeah. I mean, it's tough to. I think now he's going to see a lot. Does he get a lot more attention? Obviously, he has.
But I mean, but the same can be said for last series, right? I think for me, and you got to look at the matchup that these guys have and the team they're playing against. Despite what everyone says, how Tampa can play any way you like, let's be honest. If you take Maroon out of that lineup, I don't know that they're as physical, clearly, as Montreal. I think Caulfield matches up really nicely against Tampa. I think he's going to be able to have a little more space out there, certainly compared to Vegas at least. And I like it. I like that bet. I would take it.
Okay, what do you got?
Well, I've got most series points, Stamkos or Caulfield. Those two head-to-head, I took Caulfield. It's a bold move, but again, I just I'm going to go with my winning team, and I do think Caulfield, he's electric right now. He's going into games with a 3-piece suit, and he's got a fedora on. Confidence is booming. I'm going with Cole Caulfield. I've got, for total games decided in OT, which is another kind of funny bet, I've got 2 games. I do think that when the stakes are heightened and raised the way they are right now, you're going to see some tighter hockey. We're going to see some OT. I've got at least 2. So I picked 2 games going to OT. And then for most series points between Kucherov and Toffoli, guess who I got, Wally?
No, you went Toffoli because it's a better bet.
I got Toffoli. Only because if Kucherov is playing banged up with a bad wing or bad ribs, I'm sorry, but that's going to affect him. We saw him shooting the puck in warm-ups there in Game 7. He was laboring hard, and I played with bruised ribs. It effing sucks. It's not fun. It's painful. You can't take medication for that. You can take some painkillers. It helps to a degree, but it will affect him. And I'm sorry, but he's not going to heal in 3 days. It's going to affect him for this series. So I got Toffoli. I think that's a good one. So Toffoli over Kucherov for most points in a series.
I want to make one more bet, and that is if Tampa wins, I'm cooking you a well-done steak.
And now, do I have to eat it, or can I lubricate it with hot sauce?
No. There's no bone sauce on this thing. And I will eat your whatever piece of garbage that you want to cook.
Okay. Whoa. Okay, time out. So what we're going to do after the series is that me and Craig are going to get together and we're going to have a barbecue. You're going to have, the loser has to take 3 shots of the artisanal gin, which isn't really a hard thing to do. We all enjoy it. 3 shots, and you have to eat a medium rare steak. And if I lose, I have to eat a medium well steak or well done, right?
No, it's well done. Yeah.
Okay. So well done steak, medium rare steak.
Yeah.
And what about Craig? When Craig comes on here, we're going to get him involved in this because I want this to go 3 ways.
Okay. Hey, well, you know what? Can we bring Craig in right now?
Yeah, bring him in. There. Craig, come on. There he is.
Hey, guys. I was not half ready to come on, but all right. Yeah,
Craig, you want in on this?
Yeah, I like it. I think it's good. I think that, but I mean, I want in on this. What, I get shots of gin and steak? Yeah, I'll play.
Yeah.
I know it doesn't really sound like a hard bet to take, does it?
But I think Craig has to have the well done steak, though. Craig, which team are you picking to win the Cup final?
Tampa in like as few games as possible. I'll say Tampa in 5.
Okay. All right. So you guys are both Tampa. Okay. So I'm head to head with both of you then. How about that?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll eat whatever. You guys want to make me steak? It's a hell of a
pleasure. What do you absolutely dislike, Craig?
If you like, I'll eat.
I want to get you.
Oh man, I'm not a seafood guy at all.
Okay, so maybe I'll throw some I'll scatter shrimp. Some shellfish on there. Maybe a little shrimp.
That would be the thing that I hate. I don't hate it. I just they're water bugs. Big giant water bugs. No, thank you. But anyways, yes, delicious sometimes, I imagine.
Cool. Is there anything that will send you into anaphylactic shock? We should probably know that first.
No, I'm all good. I can eat whatever. And that's the thing. Right. I think I was a little bit like Brent when I was younger. I was a bit of a picky eater. But so in my formidable days here, I'll eat whatever. Like I'll eat seafood. I eat shrimp. I'll eat crab. I don't love it, but if it's put in front of me, I can hoover whatever I need to.
Cool. All right. There, we got
3 shrimps. Okay.
So yeah, if you're making your bets, Tampa in 5, and Montreal's they'll eke out 1 maybe. That's my sports interaction.
All right, here we go.
Nice. All right, those are the picks. Now go make your sportsinteraction.com/Wally and Methot. Sports Interaction, providing competitive odds on all sports. We'll be right back after this. You're watching the Wally Methot Show, powered by Barrhaven Ford. Welcome back to the Wally Methot Show, powered by Barrhaven Ford. Barrhaven Ford has recently introduced its all-star lineup of custom builds. It's the Barrhaven Ford Customs. Barrhaven Ford has brought Roush-inspired custom F-150s, Rangers, and Mustangs to the nation's capital. At Barrhaven Ford, they build the truck or Mustang the way you want it, customizing each truck or Mustang to fit your individual needs. Go to barrhavenford.com/BFC-customs or just go in and see them. 555 Dealership Drive in Barrhaven. Tell them Meth sent you. All right. I always love that part. Now, it's time once again for From Russia with Sokolov, one of my favorite. I mean, he's become now a show favorite. He's going to become a cultural icon in this country in no time. Presented by Faces Magazine. Check out the latest articles and more at facesmag.ca. Now, here's our good friend, Egor Sokolov.
Hey guys, back with Egor Sokolov here, and I just thought it's gonna be a pretty cool idea to show you guys what I got in my house, in my room. Yeah, so that's my room basically, and I got a little corner here with all the awards I got since I was a kid. You know, my mom came up with a pretty cool idea to build that and, you know, keep all the memories and all the medals and all the little cups I got for best players, and you know, so I think it's pretty cool idea by my mom to have that in the house. And here I got a couple important ones, like, you know, that medal is from World Under 17 Hockey Challenge back in 2016. It's a bronze medal. I think it's a pretty cool one, and obviously one of the most important ones is bronze from the Youth Olympic Games in Norway, I believe. Yeah, we got bronze then, and I think it's pretty cool one to have. And you know, just thought it's gonna be a pretty cool idea to show you guys what I got. And this thing is from Pavel Datsyuk. Yeah, I got his autograph on it, and he's from the same hometown as me. And when he was coming back when we were younger, he would give all the guys autographs, and I think it's a pretty important one. Yeah, here's me and my brother, little Sokolov here, and you know, you could see I was a pretty big boy back then. And obviously I got my brother with me here. Just want to show you him because he looks,
hey guys,
he looks just like me. Yeah, so yeah, that's, you know, pretty much it, guys. And I hope everybody's staying safe and healthy. But now I'm, you know, busy with my training, spending time with my family, skating, and July 5th I'm heading back to Canada, and you know, trying to prepare there and try to get better, obviously. And I'm looking forward to see you guys.
Great stuff from Sokolov. I should just call him the Sharkolov. Great guy. Would love to have beers with him someday. Maybe we'll bring him over for some artisanal gin by Paperboat.
You think he drinks gin?
Oh, vodka.
I was going to say Russian guy. Sharkolov's a vodka guy.
Right, vodka guy.
Yeah,
we'll have to ask him.
All the Russians are vodka guys usually.
Yeah, I imagine.
And you know what? I sense that he's a trendsetter. So I think he might go outside the box.
Yeah. Oh no, we're gonna introduce it to him for sure. I'm just absolutely.
I love that he gave a room tour. That was the best.
Yeah.
Man, that guy's funny. Awesome. We got some trivia things to give away. We've been buzzing through these lately, and we talked a little bit about the hot sauce kind of earlier in the show. So we got a little bit of a bone saw sauce, hot sauce to give away. Bringing the heat to hot sauce. I'm getting pretty good at the Brent reads here. Okay, that's the one thing. I was never the best read guy, but I'm getting there. Okay. So if we circle back to our Zach Smith interview, we asked, how many shorthanded goals did Zach Smith score in his career? 15. Jeez, that was a big number. I knew he got a bunch, but you know who else knew that? At Kadri Sends. Keep an eye on your DMs because we're going to slide in there and figure out how to get you some of this Bone Saw Sauce-Co hot sauce coming your way. So shout out to everybody who got that one right, and shout out to our friends at Bone Saw Sauce-Co for hooking us up with a sweet little prize to give away.
I feel like the Kadri Sends is just a trolling name that he uses. Every time about Kadri coming to the Sends.
I've seen that one forever. That's somebody who like went in early on a username and like it could pay big dividends.
Yeah, he's a Twitter OG, a Sends Twitter OG guy, I think. Anyway,
yeah, you got to keep those around because if it comes full circle, right? So
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Shout out to that one. You know what? We got one more thing to give away. Those Gong Show puck luck games that we've been giving away, like those are killer. So we're going to give away another one of those today based off of our Chris Cuthbert interview, which, by the way, guys, was unreal. I love that one. Very cool to hear kind of the broadcast side of things again. We hadn't done that in a little bit, so it was kind of neat and pretty cool for him to make his Stanley Cup debut tonight.
Yeah.
So we're going to reward people with a little Gong Show puck luck game set. Take this thing to the cottage, take it in your backyard, put it on the driveway, invite some buddies over, see who can dominate. Full set comes with 2 shooting pads, 8 rubber pucks, and 2 targets. So yeah, find some time to bring some buddies over and sauce some things in there. I don't know. They explain the rules here too. You can kind of see this running through that little tip down for 3. That's the one I don't know if I could do that. So Matt, you might be on my team.
Yeah. And they make some really good products. Like these are legit. We endorse a lot of stuff that we believe in. This is a good one. So I encourage people to at least check it out. They're really neat.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. So yeah, if you like this thing, I'm sure you can buy them too over at gongshow.com. But you can win one too. So here's today's question based off our Chris Cuthbert interview. And that is, how many air miles does Chris Cuthbert have? So if you know the answer to that, slide on over to Twitter, use the hashtag Wally and Methot, and be sure to tag at Gong Show Gear on Twitter and let us know. We will reveal the winner coming up on our next show.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah, he's a true legend. I really one of those few people that you get nervous to interview. That would be Chris Cuthbert, for sure.
Yeah, I told him that after the interview. I'm like, I was like, and I can't stress this enough. Like it's a fantastic interview, and he's so knowledgeable, and he's got that great voice. He's on the fly, amazing when you hear him call games. So we're really lucky to grab him in time here before this final round.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing his call and to seeing how he will make that final call whenever it is for the Stanley Cup Final. If you want to order t-shirts and mugs, you can go to our newly launched website, wallymethot.com. If you like the content, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We really much appreciate it. And as always, guys, thanks for being here. And to all the people watching, hope you enjoyed the Wally Methot Show, powered by Barrhaven Ford. Time now for us to drive on out of here. See you next time.
Yeah, and enjoy your medium rare steak, Wally. It's coming for you in about a week and a half.
Right. Good to see you, Mark.
Good to see you too, Chris.
Even if you were a London Knight, I'm still having trouble with that, but
it's all good. Well, you're wearing the colors. You got the green on.
No,
so
it's mint. You guys wear mint.
Is it French mint? Montreal?
It's not night mint.